So as I mentioned in episode 50, I'm taking some vacation time, but I didn't want to just post episode 51 on the whole vaccine passport issue and then peace out on vacation, especially when I've been getting a lot of comments and questions. So I'm doing a little bit more casual episode today while I'm on vacation mode. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a criminal defense lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV, Vacation Edition. So as I said in the introduction, I've got a lot of questions and comments. I want to thank everyone for all the support and the new subscriptions and the comments and questions that have been posted to the YouTube channel. And I decided, in honor of that, even though I'm on my vacation, I have a new microphone that I want to test out to see how that works, and thought I'd put something together. So this isn't going to be as polished as my episodes usually are. I know my lighting isn't the best. I'm recording at nighttime here, and I just don't have all my equipment here. I just have the new microphone really that I ordered, and a webcam, and a snifter of brandy to keep me sane. And let's talk a little bit more about the vaccine passport issues and a few of the recurring questions that I've seen, and a couple other things from the news that have caught my eye and some other thoughts on that topic. So one viewer said that they were surprised that I didn't mention Section 7 as one of the areas that a vaccine passport would potentially run afoul of. I actually thought I had, but then I went back and watched the episode and saw that I forgot to put that in there. I think I mentioned Section 7 so often on this channel that I thought I'd focus on the equality sections and some of the other sections a little bit more, but certainly Section 7, the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, that ties right in with what the sanctity of the human person and the body and the choice over what happens with your body that was discussed in the consent law that I went through. So I think all the arguments that apply to medical treatment without informed consent being an assault would also go to any regime that tries to coerce people into having a certain medical treatment being a violation of Section 7 of the Charter. That would absolutely apply if they ever went a step further with mandatory vaccines. Although I personally don't think that would actually be possible in law, but I also didn't think it would be possible to close the courts for several months, and that happened. Now, one good point that was raised by a couple of viewers in the comment section was the question of, it seems that the government is bringing up the vaccine passports, and then they're trying to pass it off to corporations, and how does that play out? And I'm not an employment or corporate lawyer, so I can't speak definitively on this, but generally the Charter protects people from the government first and foremost versus protecting us from other private entities. And my limited understanding of employment law is that although employment law has to be consistent with Charter values, corporations are not bound by the Charter the same way the government is, and that's why I think it'd be much easier for corporations to mandate vaccines than for the government to do that. So I can't say exactly how it's going to play out. I could see corporations pushing that and being able to push it further than government can, because of course they're still private entities, right? They would make the argument that, well, my store, my business, my rules, the whole no shirt, no shoes, no service. We can also say no vax, no service. Although that's getting into a gray area, because now we're talking about not just what someone's wearing on the outside of their body, they're talking about actual medical procedures, but it may be more problematic when it comes to employees. Now, having touched on those questions that came up, I just wanted to look quickly at a couple of news items that caught my eye that are somewhat on this same line. The Ontario provincial government recently released guidelines about reopening schools, but what caught my eye was the way that the media is portraying this. And just look at this tweet here, where this news person, supposedly a journalist, is, instead of just reporting the news, he's editorializing, as I've complained about before, and asking, well, where's the rules for the unvaccinated children? And this is how the media subtly pushes these things. And sometimes it's hard to tell who presents policy. Is it the government or is it the media? And One thing that we've really seen over the last 18 months and more is the extreme and vast power that the media has over governments, because of course, especially in a democratic country where their politicians are always highly concerned about the next election, and they know the power that the media has to persuade people, so they want to stay on the media's good side. Now, I did mention forced vaccinations earlier in this video as a next step after vaccine passports, something that I don't think is possible. It's something that some commentators are calling for. There's a USA Today article here where they're calling for, where an opinion piece is calling for mandatory vaccines, although that article does go on to say that they don't think it's legally possible, as I suggested. I got sent a couple clips of what's going on in Australia right now, and I think Australia is always interesting to look at, partly because it's winter there right now, and it's when it's summer here, so I think it can give us a bit of a taste of what we might have in store for us when it comes back to flu season, because they're in their flu season right now.
Army patrols hit the streets of Sydney on Monday to help enforce coronavirus curbs as Australia struggles to stop the Delta variant from spreading. Around 300 unarmed military personnel have been tasked with going door to door, checking that people who have tested positive are isolating at home. They're also accompanying police officers on the hunt for rule breakers.
So we can see once again, Australia has soldiers in the streets. They're keeping people locked in their homes. They've been kept in their homes for weeks. I suspect that when flu season rolls around here, we will have lockdowns here, but I don't think we'll have soldiers in the streets here. And this is something that came up right at the beginning. I remember March of 2020, people were fearful of martial law being declared in Canada, and they're asking me about that. Martial law has not been declared in Canada at all since that time, and I don't think it would be possible. The entire Canadian Armed Forces is something in the vicinity of 30,000 people, all ranks, all branches. That's generals down to your drivers and supply technicians and clerks. The number of soldiers that could actually be put on the ground to try to enforce martial law, I think very liberally or generously estimated, let's say maybe 10,000. I mean, 10,000 soldiers would maybe be enough to lock down Mississauga. It wouldn't, there's no way that a country the size of Canada, with the tiny, abused, and neglected military that we have, would be capable of enforcing martial law. So it's something that I just don't see on a practical level as being possible. Although legally, there is the potential for it. There is the Emergencies Act, which used to be called the War Measures Act. So the mechanisms are there, but it would be impossible practically to carry out. Now, I would say, normally I would have said, and it would have to be a much more extreme situation than this, but, I mean, here we are. We've seen things very close to martial law. I mean, nationwide curfews, essentially, stay-at-home orders being a nationwide curfew. We've seen those, so I'm somewhat at a stage of saying anything's possible these days. Now, absent the Emergencies Act, which is a whole different ball of wax, and maybe I can talk about that in a different video, under normal circumstances, people are probably wondering how can they do these things, and I've said this in a couple of videos before, but I want to reiterate it, that it isn't the notwithstanding clause that limits the Charter, it's Section 1 of the Charter that places reasonable limits on any charter right that can be demonstrated to be in the essentially the best interests in the operation of our country as a free and democratic society. I think where they have problems with that when these cases actually get to court with a properly framed charter challenge is whether various COVID laws, the lockdowns, things like the Reopening Ontario Act, whether those are reasonable limits on our charter freedoms that can be demonstrated to be necessary. In the face of a virus that has well over 99% survival rate for the vast majority of people, that would seem a hard sell. And likewise, in terms of vaccine passports, when we're starting to see news coming out of the United States where there have been large gatherings, and in the order of 75% of people being infected are those who've been fully vaccinated, it seems hard to argue that it's necessary to vaccinate people. Evidence of efficacy doesn't seem to be there in any event, and that, again, isn't even getting into potential safety issues. So I wanted to keep this short. I want to get back to my vacation. This video, like all my other videos, is not legal advice. If you're in a situation where you need legal advice, contact a lawyer. You can call myself or another lawyer. I'll put my 1-855 number below, along with my website address. If you have questions or ideas for show topics, please send me an email. My email address is below, or leave a comment in the comment section below. And if you found this video at all interesting, informative, or helpful, and specifically, if you liked this more casual format, please let me know. But also, please like, share, subscribe, and follow me on social media.